Guilt is one of the most confusing emotions people experience. Most people assume guilt means they did something wrong, but psychologically, that assumption is inaccurate. Guilt does not come from actions alone. It comes from how the mind interprets the impact of those actions on relationships. Think about this for a moment. Two people can do the same thing, say no to the same request, make the same decision, yet only one of them feels guilty afterward. If guilt were about right and wrong, both people would feel it equally. They don't. That tells us guilt is not a moral response. It's a relational one. The human brain is wired to protect connection. From early development, connection is associated with safety. When a child feels accepted, the nervous system remains calm. When acceptance feels threatened, the nervous system reacts. Guilt is one of those reactions. It's not a judgment, it's a signal. This is why guilt often feels physical: tightness in the chest, heaviness in the stomach, restlessness, mental replay. These are not signs of bad character. They are signs of a nervous system responding to perceived relational risk. Notice when guilt appears most strongly. It usually shows up with people who matter emotionally: parents, partners, close friends, authority figures. Guilt rarely appears with strangers because the brain assigns emotional weight to relationships. The greater the emotional value, the stronger the response when something feels off. Here's something important. Guilt developed long before modern logic, culture, or ethical systems. Its original purpose was simple: to maintain social bonds. It helped humans notice when relationships were strained and motivated repair. That function still exists, but modern life complicates it. The brain has not adapted to today's emotional complexity. It still reacts as if emotional distance equals danger. So guilt activates even when no real harm has occurred. That's why guilt often feels exaggerated compared to the situation. People who are empathetic or emotionally aware tend to experience guilt more frequently. Not because they are weaker, but because they are more sensitive to emotional cues. A pause, a change in tone, a delayed response can trigger internal alarms. The mind fills in meaning quickly, often without evidence. This sensitivity often develops early. People who grew up needing to read emotional environments carefully tend to carry that skill into adulthood. The brain learned that emotional shifts mattered, so it remains alert. Guilt becomes faster, not wiser. Another key detail is that guilt does not require certainty. In fact, it thrives on ambiguity. When someone clearly expresses disappointment, the mind can process that information. When signals are vague, the brain searches for explanations. In uncertainty, self-blame often feels safer than not knowing. That's why guilt frequently appears after interactions, not during them. A conversation ends, everything seems fine, then later the mind replays it. Did I say too much? Did I sound selfish? Did I disappoint them? This process is not conscience, it's rumination. And rumination is about control, not truth. When people cannot control how others feel, the mind tries to control the story. The simplest story is often, "I must have done something wrong." That explanation gives the illusion of control, even if it's inaccurate. Expectation plays a major role here. Most guilt is not caused by harm, it's caused by violated expectations. Someone expected availability, agreement, emotional support, or consistency. When that expectation isn't met, emotional distance can appear, even subtly. Guilt rushes in to close that distance. The problem is that expectations are internal. They exist in someone's mind, not an objective reality. Yet guilt treats them like obligations. This is why people feel guilty for setting boundaries, changing priorities, or growing beyond old roles. None of these actions are wrong, but they disrupt expectations. Over time, guilt can be reinforced externally. If feeling guilty leads to compliance, and compliance restores harmony, the brain learns a pattern. Guilt becomes a reflex rather than a signal. No manipulation is required, just repetition. Healthy guilt is specific. It points to a particular behavior that caused harm. Unhealthy guilt is vague. It targets the self rather than the action. When guilt loses specificity, it stops guiding behavior and starts shaping identity. That's when people begin to feel guilty not for what they did, but for who they are. This is where guilt becomes exhausting. It turns into chronic self-monitoring, constant emotional responsibility, and internal pressure to maintain harmony at personal cost. Many people mistake this for kindness or maturity. Psychologically, it's hyper-responsibility. Here's another important observation. Guilt often disappears the moment reassurance appears. A simple "it's okay" or "I understand" can dissolve it instantly. If guilt were about truth, reassurance wouldn't erase it. But guilt responds to safety, not truth. When safety returns, the nervous system relaxes. That tells us exactly what guilt is reacting to. It's reacting to attachment, not ethics. Feeling guilty does not automatically mean someone is wrong. It means their system detected a possible disruption in connection. Emotionally stable people don't lack guilt. They experience it differently. Their sense of worth is more internal, so disapproval doesn't register as danger. They can feel guilt, evaluate it, and let it pass without absorbing it into their identity. Understanding guilt doesn't eliminate it. It changes the relationship with it. When guilt is understood as a psychological signal rather than a moral verdict, it loses its authority. It becomes information instead of command. That's what real psychological understanding does. It doesn't suppress emotion, it places emotion in context. And when an emotion is contextualized, it no longer controls behavior automatically. Guilt is not proof of wrongdoing. It is evidence of a mind trying to protect connection, sometimes accurately, sometimes unnecessarily. Once that distinction is clear, guilt stops defining who someone is and becomes just another mental response passing through.